protocol, we want to do what's called the Ascorbate Flush. What that is, and some people call it the Ascorbate calibration, same thing. What you're doing is calibrating your body's individual need for vitamin C. The first time, I've taken myself through this detox twice. The first time I calibrated or did the vitamin C flush, I actually flushed, and I'll tell you what that means in a minute, with about 12 to 14 grams, which is not a huge amount, but it's a large dose. After I had tetanus and I had to have the human immunoglobulin in the form of 12 shots, if you haven't heard that story, I have a video on our channel called My Wake Up Call, so you can go watch that and hear the story of my tetanus experience. But after my tetanus, with this detox that we're just finishing up, it took me 39 grams to flush. That is a huge dose of vitamin C. And I believe that the reason it took so much was because of all the junk in my body left over from the tetanus and from the shots that I had to take. So when you do the Ascorbate Flush, you challenge your body with a huge dose of vitamin C to the point of diarrhea. And it's not just, you know, one loose stool that we're looking for. We're looking for a liquid stool, a gush of water of like a pint and a half of just water coming out. That's the flush. That's when you know that your body is totally saturated with vitamin C. According to Dr. Jaffe, when you reach that point, if you had a microscope and could look at one of the human cells, you could actually see the vitamin C precipitating and returning back into a powder form in the cell, which I think is really neat. Okay, the way to do the flush is on before you start the detox, you want to pick a day when you can stay home. You will need to stay home for this day. Trust me. Don't try to do this on a day that you're going to work. The day that we do the flush, we actually fast breakfast, and that's the only time during the whole detox that you really need to fast. And the reason you need to fast, you'll find out as we go. What we do is we start off with 1 teaspoon of ascorbate dissolved in a minimum of 8 ounces of water. I like to use 12 because if you use too little water, when you do the ascorbate flush, you can get terrible gas pains and cramps. 9 times out of 10, if somebody has that when they're doing the ascorbate calibration, it's for one of 2 reasons. One, as I mentioned, too little water. The other is trying to rush it, trying to get it done too quickly. So, a teaspoon, a level teaspoon of the powder in a cup to a cup and a half, and I prefer about 12 ounces, cup and a half of water. Dissolve it in. Now it's going to effervesce or bubble. When it finishes the bubbling process is when you drink it. Don't drink it until it's done with its bubbling process. That'll take about 5 minutes. So you're going to do that. Take 1 teaspoon, 1 level teaspoon in that amount of water, 8 to 12 ounces, every 15 minutes. And you're going to do that. And here's the way that I know that I'm getting really close to that saturation point. I start feeling the rumble, I call it, the gurgling in my gut. When I get to that point where I really start to rumble, not just a little gurgle, but a real, it's really rolling in there. When I get to that point, I take 1 more dose. And you want to calculate, keep up with how many teaspoons you take. Now, in this ascorbate, I believe it's, I don't have my glasses, but yeah, 4,000 milligrams per teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon is 4 grams, okay? 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. You're going to want to know how many teaspoons it takes you to actually have the flush, to get to the point to where you have that watery stool. When you get to that point, what you're going to do on a daily basis thereafter is you're going to calculate whatever 2/3 of that dose is. So for instance, if it took me 3 grams to flush, I would take 2 grams a day. Okay, just simplifying it. So 2/3 of whatever the flush amount is what you're going to need on a daily basis. And here's how you take it on a daily basis. Because it took me 39 grams to flush this time, the dose that I needed to take on a daily basis, I think my husband calculated it as a little over 5 teaspoons. Let's see, a little over 6 teaspoons that I would need to take every day. That's a lot, and if I took all that at one time, not only would I have a terrible stomach ache, but I would flush, because that's a lot at one time. Okay, so what you do is you want to prepare it in a jar, like, you know, a quart jar. You can use a larger jar, but I recommend a quart jar. Put all your vitamin C that you need for that day in the jar. Let it finish fizzing out and put the lid on it. You want to keep it, actually it would be better if this was one of those brown jars, but it's darker and I use it up fairly quickly. So I try to make sure that I get half of this drunk before lunch and the other half I drink in the afternoon and evening. You're just going to want to sip this throughout the day. Now, if you don't drink enough water with this is super concentrated, depending on how much it takes you to flush. But for me, 6 teaspoons that's a lot of ascorbate, and if I took all that at once, I would have terrible cramps. And in this detox, because we had to take so much, my husband had to take a lot more too. We found out really quickly that if you don't drink enough water, you'll have the bad cramps, because the first couple of days we paid, because neither of us drank enough water, and we had terrible cramps and bloating. But after that, we increased our water a lot. For instance, if I take 4 or 5 swigs of this, swallows of this, I'm going to take 2 or 3 times that much water. And you can use your ginger and lemon water for that, that's fine. But don't just drink this without drinking this. This is very concentrated. When you drink your swallows of this throughout the day, then you're also going to want to take water with it at the same time. Now, a couple other things on the ascorbate. One is when you finish the detox, you can't just suddenly stop taking. If you're like for me, with those 6 teaspoons a day that I'm having to take, if I suddenly stopped taking that, see, my body is used to getting that level of vitamin C. It could actually, I wouldn't feel very well. It could cause some reactions in my body. And so I'm going to, I think we're finished tomorrow with this, and so I will start backing off by a teaspoon or so a day and then kind of taper myself off. But I take a teaspoon of the ascorbate every day, and the reason I do that is because I'm exposed to heavy metals every day, and my body needs vitamin C. And you know, an orange today does not have the same amount of vitamin C as it did when I was a little girl, you know, 45, 50 years ago. It's just not the same. In fact, somebody shared a chart with me one time, and I think there's like 40 or 50% less vitamin C. The vitamin C in the form of ascorbate is bioidentical, which means that it's the same form of vitamin C as is found in our foods. So that's it for the ascorbate flush. But I think I emphasized whenever you can't just jump into doing the ascorbate. You've got to have the bowels open first. So at the very beginning, before you even start the flush, the detox, anything, get your bowels moving. Start taking the flaxseed tea. In order to do that, you just bring 2 cups of water to a boil. Put a heaping tablespoon of organic flaxseed whole in the water. Cover it and remove it from the heat. Let it sit for 10 minutes and then strain it and drink it. You can eat the seeds if you want to, but they are kind of slimy. Some people that's a little offensive. But it really tastes nice. It's got a nice nutty flavor. And it's very good for you. Very cleansing, detoxifying to the kidneys. So you have to clean the colon. You want to get the kidneys open. And then we'll take the detox as we go.